Yeah.
There's the hips. Battery's running low. What the heck here? Is this?
We'll get started here in a few minutes. Thank you everyone for joining. Hi, Vicki, I see you joined. Good morning. I think maybe there should be waiting room music on Zoom town halls as people are trying to get in.
Well, you could sing.
We want people to stay on. We want to hear what they have to say.
Oh, okay.
We'll give it another minute here as people are still joining. So stick with us here and we'll be ready to go. All right, is everybody out of the waiting room?
Yep, I don't see any in there yet.
Okay. So apparently there was a change in Zoom, and as you enter our meeting, you are automatically put into a waiting room, and then you have to be approved to enter the meeting by the administrator. Obviously, this is a public meeting, so everyone is welcome and actually encouraged to come. So that is just a change in the technology. We're not screening anybody out, but that's just the new process with Zoom, and we'll just continue to work around it. So I am Shane Thomas, and I sensed that there was a substantial amount of interest in how we move forward with the museum. So I felt it appropriate to try to get together in a town hall format. I would ask that you keep your microphone muted until you're ready to speak. That way it minimizes any kind of background noise and everybody can hear what everyone else is saying. I'd love to do this in person. I think we've got 30 or 35 people on here now. And, just to accommodate everybody in this era of pandemic, I don't think that's possible. So this is the best format we could come up with. And, as time goes on, obviously we'll be back meeting in person and discussing these kinds of things. But for now, we have to use the tools that are available. And I'm happy that everybody showed up today. So I just want to recap on where we're at so that we're all on the same page as we begin this conversation. I don't want to dredge up all the old history, but obviously there's a lot of history that surrounds the museum, no pun intended, but there's, we got to this place, through decisions that have been made along the way. When I first started in office, there was a structure put in place where there was an advisory board, and the director was an employee of the county, and the advisory board essentially was driving the mission of the museum. Obviously, the commissioners and commissioner staff had a significant amount of input, but we were more hands-off than hands-on. And, so that has been the operating mode for the museum my entire tenure. And so we got to this point because when the pandemic happened and we decided to proactively begin cutting expenses, anticipating declines in revenue, further economic malaise as it related to the pandemic, we did close the museum and lay off the director. At that time, we canceled contracts for folks. We did not actually disband the advisory board, but they did stop meeting. So in effect, they are no longer a functioning board, not meeting at the very least. We didn't take any formal action to disband them, but there hasn't been any activity there. So, that's kind of how we got to the moment a few months ago where it was a financial decision. Primarily, obviously, opening the museum has consequences as it relates to the pandemic. At that time, the foundation came forward with a generous offer to fund the operations of the museum and relieve that economic burden from the county as we were focusing on other areas of need. So that started to have a full hearing, a few months ago. And, we have a contract drafted up that is in legal review. It hasn't been acted on. It hasn't been accepted. We're simply doing some due diligence there. Subsequent to their offer, the financial position of the county has turned around, and we're in much better financial shape than I would say any of us anticipated. So we have the ability to continue the operation of the museum from a financial standpoint. However, we've had these conversations, and we need to pick a direction forward. And the sense is that this is a good time to consider some changes. So, my goal for today is to kind of review what has been said and hear from folks on, what the museum has done right, because they've done a lot right, what direction the museum could, should, would go, and, ascertain what level of support there is for a variety of different scenarios for moving forward. And so to kick it off, a number of you have already expressed opinions, and so I wanted to start off with what I'm going to call the mailbag, the town, museum town hall mailbag. And this is stuff that we've received. I've also had a number of meetings, and I didn't try to summarize those, but just in the words of people who have reached out, I wanted to share some of those thoughts, because I'm sure there's folks on here who have said their piece and just want to know that they've been heard and that their thoughts are being considered. So that's where I'll start. So this is an email that I received, and I don't want to, I'm not going to disclose, who sent these emails. They're certainly public records, but those were emails to us, and so I'm going to not disclose those at this time. The museum has always been very clean and displays well presented. Very special displays are always a special interest to everyone. They are well represented on Facebook, interesting stories about our county's history, and with many dedicated followers. I am a hobby researcher, and the museum staff has always been happy to help me with projects. Please support keeping the museum how it is with Tanya and all the awesome volunteers. This is another email that I received. The Seneca County Museum is a jewel, and I think we all agree with that, to our community, which will continue to enrich both young and old. The current management initiated this path and hopefully will continue. It's concerning you're considering changing course in the middle of this progression. The Seneca County budget can handle the infinitesimal cost of supporting the museum. If the county wants some financial contributions from the museum, make the Barnes Deinzer Foundation fork over some of their money. As far as that goes, the foundation was formed to support the museum, not control it. This was their names. In favor of keeping the present structure and the operation of the county museum, we feel that foundation should support the museum, but not control it. In our opinion, the current director and volunteers have performed an outstanding job in providing programs for the community, many of which have enjoyed. The work diligently to plan fundraising projects while at the same time maintaining the priceless collection of artifacts which depict our local history in Seneca County. Keeping the museum collection safe is a huge responsibility, and I think we all agree with that. Tanya is very knowledgeable, and she has done much to improve the museum and bring in visitors. In addition, she has persevered through a lot of turmoil, including the financial difficulties, I assume, at the museum, and the death of her husband. And our condolences out to her on that, who spent countless hours volunteering. Yes, he was a volunteer. And we are consistently impressed with Tanya's knowledge of and passion for all things historical. Tanya is a treasure, and her continued leadership will assure the museum's continued success. I strongly urge you to do what is necessary to keep her in the position for which she is ideally suited. The public, as well as the museum, will be the winners. This isn't by me, but this was a picture I took with the Elvis tree at the museum, and I wanted to use it. This is a well-placed elected official in Seneca County. I know that you are essentially between a rock and a hard place on this issue. My wish is that you will resume funding of the museum operation and reinstate Tanya from her furlough, which is what it is. Whether that has to be done in a diminished capacity so that it may be funded is certainly among the conversations that should happen. However, I believe that having the county fund the museum operations, having a director as knowledgeable as Tanya, and being able to harness the incredible dedicated volunteers from the Seneca County Historical Society will be of immense benefit to our community. This is from another well-placed person. For example, the museum, if you decide to want to continue paying, you would have what expectations that she would come back to do? What would the museum advisory board suggest? Have they offered a plan of how they would move forward? We see every day that the businesses that have learned to pivot and offer their services in another way are surviving. Those that are not looking to change are going to have a more difficult time. I'm not opposed to continuing with the same personnel at the museum, but I think it only fair that they present their plan to survive and thrive. The Museum Foundation has presented such a plan. Another well-placed person. Now we have the proposal from Lame Duck Commissioner Thomas with a plan to cost the taxpayers even more money with the hiring of a director and a curator. He even wants to involve the Parks Board. I never realized that the Parks Board was an entity with experience and expertise in the museum field. I'm still shaking my head at that one. Not once did they mention the foundation by name, and his proposal, obviously his competency level in the museum knowledge is akin to what it is with wind turbines. Unfortunately, as usual, Commissioner Thomas has not done his homework. And then finally, any good business owner hires only the best, most competent person for the job. In this case, that would be the foundation. We are an organization of professionals who can make great things happen for Tiffin and Seneca County. Let us step up to the plate and prove it. The foundation's goal would be to make the museum a place where everyone is welcome. Please allow us to reopen it so it doesn't just sit idle. We have the funds, we welcome the volunteers, and we have the knowledge about our history. And above all, we have the passion. So I thought it was important to get some of that on the record. I appreciate people who reach out. That's very helpful for us to understand where people are at. And with that, that's what has been said to us in formal writing. I don't know that that's a sampling of all the emails, but it's I should say it is a sampling of the emails. I don't know if it's comprehensive. And so, from here, I think I would like to open the lines and see if there's any reaction to the comments that have been made to us via email. If there are suggestions on how we should move this forward. I would like to keep personalities out of this. We are all here because we care about the museum. The museum is, in my estimation, a treasure, and it should be celebrated. And we just need to find the best possible path forward. So with that, I think we can have people unmute themselves. And if someone has something to say, I would welcome you. If you're not speaking, remain muted. And if you have, if someone else starts speaking, obviously we'll just wait our turns. So is there anybody out there who would like to say something?
Hey, Paul here. I'd like to point out, in 1942, on July 23rd, Lynn Truxell willed that house to the county museum, to the county, with the understanding to be a museum. According to the docket on page 420 of this county commissioners in 1942, it states the county will take care of the county museum for its duration. Now, to me, that's a complete record, public, it's a document telling me that, hey, this is the way it's going to be done, and that's the way it's going to be continued on. Now, as a commissioner, you have the option to change this public record from 1942 when Lynn Truxell and his wife gave that house to the county to use as a museum. I have nothing against the foundation, but the foundation was never there to help us out. Yeah, helped us out with exterior work. But when it came to funding and taking care of us or helping us, they were never there to help us out. So my main question is, this request that Lynn Truxell made to the county commissioners back in 42, is it still officially legal? That's all I have to say.
Yeah, and just to answer that, I mean, I think it's reasonable to have a debate about whether or not a county should be in the museum business. I think that's a reasonable discussion. As you've pointed out, that decision was made. And so, having that decision revisited is not something I'm interested in. we made that commitment, or my predecessors made that commitment, and I want to see us fulfill that commitment. I enjoy the museum, and I hope it only gets better from here. So that's why we're here. All right. Anyone else who would like to go next?
Commissioner, this is John Monk from WTOL.
Hi, John. How are you?
Checking in. Doing well. Doing all right. Do we have a general time frame for when you said that the contract that's drafted up is going to go through review, and sort of what the next steps are for what we can expect for the timeline for that moving forward?
No. John, so Commissioner Kirshner put forward a proposal that came from the foundation, and they have and he asked that he be able to move that into legal review, which I supported, because that sometimes drags on as you try to develop that process. Commissioner Paradiso has been meeting with a lot of people, actually, and trying to get his mind around how other museums operate. And he's committed to bring his thoughts forward in the next few weeks. So I think it's reasonable to assume that within the next month we'll have resolution of this, and I would encourage us to do that. My thoughts that I put forward, and I'm certainly amenable to other directions. That's why we're continuing to gather information. But my thoughts are that we should be bringing Tanya back immediately and doing inventory and completing some of the necessary tasks that we have within the museum, and preparation for some kind of spring opening. And having a process to define our future that involves things like this town hall. So those were my thoughts. So we'll see where it goes, but I don't have a timeline for you, John. But thanks for dialing in. Who else would like to ask a question or have a statement?
Oh, come on.
Just a reminder that if you're calling in on the phone, please hit *6 to unmute.
Shane, this is Jody Reinbolt from the Tiffin Community Foundation.
Hi, Jody. How are you?
I'm good. When you talk about timeframes, that is where my concerns lie. We have at the Tiffin Community Foundation, Bob Teach left money in a fund. And so every January, we award money from that fund to 7 entities that he wanted us to honor in Tiffin and Seneca County. One of those is the Seneca County Museum. And so it's this time of year when I would start to talk to those entities about how they could be eligible for those grants and what kinds of things they're interested in. If the Seneca County Museum is not open in December, it will be difficult to figure out how they will be eligible for that. It is my hope that you are able to open and have services available over the Christmas season, which I think is, a big time for the museum, a time they should be open, even though I know it would be challenging this year, and that they then would be eligible to use some of that money in January. That being said, I encouraged the current personnel last year when we worked on this. I don't disagree with any of the emails that you referred to. There is a lot of good that happens at the museum now. There's a lot of basis that we could grow from. And I always encourage them, I'm not sure that our grant, the way that grant committee works, Mr. Teach did not want it to be that each entity would get the exact same amount each year. He wanted it to be that if one entity needed that money to survive, they could possibly get the whole pot. So there's a lot of opportunity here, and I've talked to the museums about some marketing opportunities. take what you've got at the museum and take advantage of these teach funds, not to buy another cabinet or another piece of glass, but let's put that money into some marketing ability. Take what you've got there and add to it. Let's put some more personnel in there and have the personnel that's there, if they're good at that, okay, let's do some marketing. Let's take what we've got that's working and go a little further with that. We could do more fundraising. We could do more grant writing. We could definitely take it to the next level, I feel like. And that's where I think, changing it adds some opportunity. That's kind of what I would encourage you to think about when you're making this decision.
Thank you for your community leadership, Jody. And I was not aware that those teach funds may be tied to our opening or not. So that's interesting. Certainly, Christmas at the museum is very special, and I don't foresee a way that we can do that this year with social distancing requirements and being out of operation for as long as we have. That takes an enormous amount of volunteer hours, and I appreciate it because it's amazing. Back to your concept, Jody, of partnering together with all the museums. Describe for me how you would see a combined marketing program operate. Because this idea has been raised before, and I haven't quite got my mind around how that might look. Are you thinking a separate entity, or one of the entities would take the lead, or how would you foresee that happening?
I think that could happen several different ways, Shane. You could hire someone at the Seneca County Museum that would just be in charge of marketing. Of course, we would always hope that that person would then share successful ideas and experiences with, like, say, the American Civil War Museum. We did have some students from Heidelberg that worked last year on putting together a proposal as to some things that they thought would work for the libraries the museums as far as fundraising and marketing. So I think we could take advantage of the museums, and that's another thing I'd like to see as a relationship to our education in the community, get the museum tied more into the universities and the schools. Visitation services in Tiffin is going to change and get better, I think, under Bryce's current leadership. And so I think they can help us with some of this marketing that needs to take care of the museum. I'm not sure what the end result looks like. I think there are a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, I think we all agree that we have fantastic museums that in a lot of ways are undermarketed. I mean, the Glass Museum is just is stellar. And if you love the Civil War Museum is so well done. So that's a concept that has been discussed somewhat, but there's not been any formal action. And I would love to see Seneca County Museum and Seneca County be involved in a collaborative effort to market all of our museums. So that's good.
Shane,
that's good.
Shane,
Yes.
Chuck Christensen.
Hi, Chuck.
Hey, that we talked about this, and having been the president of the advisory board for 3 years, I think sustainability is the key question. How do you sustain all of the museums over the long term? And excuse me, I'm calling from my home. I got to get away from the phone. We have 2 marketing and fundraising studies. Jody mentioned one, which was the one from Heidelberg. There was also one that was done by TU students for me as part of the advisory board. Those studies are pretty comprehensive, and they can be used as roadmaps to go forward with marketing and fundraising. I don't think putting the museum having the museum fund the operation of the museum, or having the county fund the operation of the museum, is the answer. The museum has to be self-sustaining. All of the museums have to be self-sustaining. That's a tough thing, because if you look at the people who work in the museums, they do a great job, but they're inwardly focused. We need somebody in there who is either a fundraising manager or a director who is outwardly focused, who has a background in business, preferably have a degree in marketing or something like that. And those are the kinds of people that are going to make the museums sustainable, whether it's the county museum or all of the other museums. And that person could be, part of this conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Chuck, for all the time
Okay.
you've committed to the advisory board. Your leadership there has been invaluable, and my hat's off to you. And all of us are very appreciative of the time you've put in there. Sustainability is certainly something that we're all interested in. Earned income is never going to be something that sustains the museum. That would be admissions. And I don't know of a museum in the country that is sustained by earned income.
Well, it's not just, Shane, it's not just earned income. It is
Right.
grants.
It's grants,
It
correct.
is
I was getting there.
business relationships. It's relationships with schools. It's all of those outreach that eventually turns into income, whether it's bricks, whether it's having dinners at the museum where people come and listen to speakers and pay something, family memberships. There are all kinds of things, newsletters that businesses advertise in. There are a number of things that could be done.
Yeah, and I agree. I agree. I mean, and I was getting there. I mean,
Okay.
earned income, in kind, donations. But I think if you look across the country, using Hayes Center as an example, they get nearly, they have a foundation, they have earned income, they have regular fundraising, and they still get, $500,000 or whatever it is from the state of Ohio. So, there's still government involved in many of these museums. So we just have to be honest about that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have a problem with government involvement. It's just long-term government involvement. It's always subject to not necessarily a pandemic, but budget shortfalls. And when government is involved, you look at things like community security, EMS, those kinds of things take precedent. And so, unfortunately, the museum is one of the first things that takes a hit.
Yeah, no question that when prioritization happens, that we have to prioritize safety service and EMS, higher. But in context, what we're spending on the museum is south of $100,000. Probably somewhere around 70,000 against $19 million in revenue. So the reality is that we spend $100,000 in economic development and $70,000 on the museum. So putting it in context, it's not like it's breaking the budget.
Right. Okay. Well, that's really all I thought that you might want to hear from me, because I've had experience with this.
They sure do. And I think, I hope that you can stay engaged with us, Chuck, because you have, a substantial amount of institutional knowledge.
Well, thank you.
All right. Anyone else like to contribute?
Hello, can I talk?
Sure. Thank you.
Hello, this is Mark Steinmetz calling here. I'm here at the Civil War Museum with several other Historical Society members. I want to thank you, first of all, Shane, for setting this whole thing up so it gives us a chance to have a voice and what may happen to the museum going forward. I just wanted to mention that my wife and I first lived on Miami Street after we got married, and we were neighbors to Paul and Myron Barnes. And since we didn't have a whole lot of money, we visited with them, became good friends, had meals at their house, and spent a lot of time in the museum. And I've been going to the museum for the last 45 years. I've been a Historical Society member for like 35 years, and I was actually a foundation member for 20 years. So I've got a lot of time and experience in the museum. I've known all the directors, and love the museum over there. And my dad was heavily involved, a firefighter, and there's a lot of things that we wanted to see the museum do going forward. And when Tanya came in and took over for Rosalie, what a lot of people don't know is that Rosalie was a terrific museum director, but she allowed the museum's mechanicals to go downhill quite a bit. And Tanya moved in, was able to work with the fundraising, got like $400,000 to help with a new roof and electrical and a lot of things, and brought the museum up to a good operating condition. And then when the foundation, or when the county ran into some issues there in 2011, where they were going to possibly sell the museum and all the contents, that really woke a lot of people up. And Historical Society traditionally was a society, and that was about it. We had like about $1,000 in our kitty. But rather than see the museum close and be sold, we stepped forward and offered to operate the museum to get through this bump. And during that time, you talk about marketing, you talk about survival. Our group, which had nothing, was required to pay $12,000 to $15,000 a year to the county to keep things open for the utilities, et cetera. And we worked and we developed and we held all kinds of luncheons and performed, programs and things like this, went out and talked to people. And we were able to bring in over those years over $56,000. And the big emphasis, the big thing, the only reason that even happened, we were able to do that was because Tanya, who had been paid for the 15 years or so many years, but prior for that, actually volunteered for those 5 years to work for free. And when those 5 years were up and she got back in and was a paid person, our group of volunteers that had suffered and survived through all that continued on, and we continued to fundraise and continued on to work our butts off to keep that museum going and to keep it to be as exciting as it could be for people coming in. We developed such a friendship with so many people. Our open houses at Christmas time were spectacular, and we have people tell us that this was suddenly now a tradition with their families, and it breaks our heart to not be able to do that this year. And really, it was Robert Teach who came to our museum and was so impressed with what Tanya was doing that he actually at one time offered all of his willed money to go to the museum if the county did not pick it up again. But they did, and so he was divided his money up amongst the 7 entities. And we've made use of the Teach money over the last 2 years and getting grants to help get the carriage house, which was in desperate need of repairs, to get that up and fixed up, and to get glass cases for our wonderful glass collection down there. And all those things we were working towards. You want to talk about bringing money in and bringing marketing into this museum, into this community. We have some of the best collection of fire equipment at that museum and the carriage house. We just need a place to display it. And I've been begging for somehow or another for us to have grants to be able to fix that up. If you get that fixed up into a fire museum, you'll have people beating on the door wanting to get in. This Seneca County will be even more of a go-to place than it was before. So with these teach grants, and we anticipated to apply for the teach grant again this year to chip away more getting the carriage house fixed up. So those are all things that we don't sit idly by and twiddle our thumbs and do nothing down there. We've got 4,200 items we've done on inventory over the last 3 years, not 7 years we've been working on it, 3 years. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes for each inventory to be determined, photographed, and entered into the system, and then marked and put in place. All that stuff is going to be gone by the wayside. All that effort is going to be lost in a changeover to someone else. When we've got the person sitting right here who's done it all already and who knows what else has to be done, why would you throw that away? So in my experience and in my time of being involved with the museum, and after all of our work our volunteers have done to keep the place open and make it grow, we sit back ready and willing to get back in there again and to do what we've started. We've got all the Tiffin glass moved from where it was into another room, waiting to put in new glass cases when all this came to an end because of the COVID thing. So I guess what I'm saying is that, and I agree with you, Shane, the cost is what, 0.25% of the budget to keep the museum open. It's something that in 1942, those commissioners had great pride in. Their names are etched in the cornerstone of the museum, and their names are on plaques in the Fort Ballroom. It's something that we should continue on with pride and not consider it a hindrance, a line on the budget that we hate to see, an easy thing to throw out because, who needs a museum, but we can get by without it. But there is such a dedicated number of people out there who love it, and we've grown. Our Facebook page is the largest in the county. Talk about a marketing tool. We have people from all over the country and not that on the world who look at this and love it. That stuff's going to go all away if this is just thrown by the wayside and discarded, and volunteers are said, thanks, but we're going a different direction. So, again, I would much rather be this afternoon going down the museum and working on things than to have to be sitting here and fighting these battles over something that's been taken care of by the county for the last 60 to 80 years without any issues. Let's go ahead and get back on here again. And as far as getting another grant for the teach grant, we can get down there in the next month. We can apply for it. We can keep putting the cases in that we've been waiting to get in and still kind of be considered open. So that's my suggestion. Again, I'm not here to bash anybody. I'm just here to be wanting to do what work we've been doing for all this time. So I talked long enough, but thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. And I appreciate your dedication to the museum and all things history. It's, we all enjoy the Facebook page and everything that goes with that. A couple things. One is, you talked about the bones, the structure of the museum. And we know that the museum needs and is going to continue to need tender loving care. So from a capital standpoint, that need is nowhere near fulfilled. We want to upgrade the electrical, we want to upgrade the HVAC, we want to continue the carriage house. There's landscaping and ADA issues that we'd like to address. So the list is long. And I do think that the county's involvement will assist with that. But there's not going to be capital dollars readily available to take it to the level that we want, in the near term. But we know that's out there, and we appreciate the work that's been done in writing grants. And then, the other thing is, you mentioned the commissioners having pride. And I can tell you all three of the commissioners and Holly Stacy before us had tremendous pride in the museum and continue to have nothing but high esteem for the museum. So, we want the best thing for it is I guess where I was going with that. All right.
Hey, Shane Paul here again. Have
Yeah.
you guys talk to other commissioners throughout the state of Ohio about their museum? Like recently, I've been to the Wood County Museum, the infirmary outside of Bowling Green, and it's run by the county. And they did a superb job with the commissioners in the museum where they put elevators in for ADA. They did put the HVACs. Maybe the commissioner needs to go out and talk to the other commissioners throughout the state of Ohio and say, hey, what'd you do to upgrade your museum? Now, I don't accept as BS that the counties are not in the museum business anymore, but they are throughout the United States. So I believe that there should be a board that goes to each individual locally, and it is run by the county, like Wood County, and say, hey, what did you do to get this done? That infirmary has a lot of space in it, but there's not much displays in there, but they got air conditioning in there. They got, like I said, they got a big ballroom in there. They used to be the cafeteria of the infirmary that they rent out. The Seneca County Museum, we have our Fort Ballroom, but that's not an adequate space. There's so many people we get in there, and Tanya and we all have done a great job getting luncheons in there and all that, and they've been profitable. But I think you need to go out beyond Seneca County and look at Wood County and say, you know, because when I talked to the curator there, he said the county commissioners are always there to help them out. And that's what we're seeking, is your help to help us to run the Seneca County Museum for you as commissioners and the people in the Seneca County. So maybe that might be something you might want to take a drive down the Bowling Green, go to Wood County, the infirmary, and they do have mission fees as well. And they charge, well, I got them free because I'm a docent here at Seneca County Museum, but they do charge a fee. But if you're in a county, Wood County, you get it free. But if you're outside the county, you get a minimal charge of $2 or $3. So you might want to look at that, go to other county museums and see what they're doing, to make it happen.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and that's a good recommendation. I'll defer to Commissioner Paradiso. He's actually, I believe he's reached out to Wood County. It's my understanding that the Park District owns that, and they support it, or maybe they run it. But Commissioner Paradiso has reached out to them and done some work there. He's also reached out to the Hayes Center. So I don't know the outcome of those conversations. I just know that was his plan of action. So good thought, Paul. Other thoughts? Can you see if anybody's hands up? Go ahead.
This is Earl Woodland.
Yeah.
Good morning, Commissioner and everyone. I just wanted to speak on behalf of volunteers and what they mean. I've been involved in many organizations over the years that volunteers played the huge part in keeping things going, no matter whether it was money or not. I have seen how that passion counts a lot more for keeping things going and then searching for the things you need to pay the bills and things. So I've seen that with the Seneca County Museum and all those involved there. And I hope that we don't put that fire out of that passion that those volunteers have. Thanks.
Yeah, I love that. If you've been down there at Christmas time, I don't know how many hours it takes to decorate all those trees, but I know what it takes to decorate my tree, and I don't know how many there were. There were multiples in every room, and that's all done, with volunteer hours. So, we certainly appreciate that, and I acknowledge the value of that. Not, in-kind labor is, invaluable. We couldn't ever afford to decorate the museum the way it gets decorated at Christmas. So very conscious of that. Thank you for those thoughts. Anyone else? We have,
Yes.
a few.
Yes.
Go
Hello.
ahead. Yeah.
Yes. Hello. This is Sarah Hess. I am a historical society member, and I just kind of want to reiterate quickly what Mark Steinman said. My children go up there. They've been museum babies. They've been going up since they've been born. My daughter had her 3rd birthday party up there with all the funding. Instead of presents, everything went to museum back in, what was that? That was 6 years ago when all this stuff was going on. So I just want to reiterate, all that the museum did, the volunteers, they did lunches and all that. And again, I want to reiterate that Tanya volunteered for 5 years. I don't know anybody that would go to work every single day for 5 years and not get a penny. I mean, that just blows my mind. I just can't even comprehend that. And if that's not love and labor love, and I just want to thank her for all that she did and continues to do. And still, I mean, her heart's in there. I mean, she really puts her heart in there and what she's done for all the years and all the volunteers. And like I said, that museum is a big part of our life and our children. We're trying to get the young people. Everyone's like, where's the young kids? Where's the next generation? Well, that we're trying to get them involved. And I think the museum's doing a great job. So I just want to say there's great people, great volunteers, and thank Tanya and Marks for all the good people up there that they're putting their life and their heart and soul into that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and that raises a really good point. The museum is the place where Seneca County government interacts with education. And, we support a lot of educational enterprises across the county through the museum with field trips and displays and Heritage Village. I remember I was a county public school kid, and our field trip to the museum, and we had our sack lunches, and we sat in the Fort Ballroom and ate them. I mean, I can remember it all, and couldn't wait to run up to the animal exhibit. And it's just I remember it all, and that's a place where we do support our education community. And there have been some strong voices reach out to us who are educators and really value the tool of having a museum that's functioning at a high level, and so we certainly want to continue to do that. And personally, when I went at Christmas, I had a mini docent show me through. She was dressed up like little Susie Christmas, and so seeing the young involved with our history, I think that's really a valuable intangible of the museum. Looking for some other comments. I kind of thought we would go about an hour, so we're kind of approaching that. So anyone who has something, I'd like to get you in before we hop off.
Shane, this is Mark Steinmetz again. Can I say one more thing?
Sure, absolutely.
Just one other word in, and again, I feel terrible if it wasn't said, but one thing about our museum, the Seneca Museum, is that when we were going through hard times and, and everybody was hurting during that 2012 era, we banded together with the other museums in town and the art gallery and became what was called the Museum Alliance and Art Gallery. And we worked together to have fundraisers and split the money up to keep the doors open. And what everybody has to realize is we're discussing an awful lot about the Seneca Museum, but all of our museums, we have become super big friends with everybody, and we all need help. And if there is a common solution that could be found for all of us, that would be the way to go. If there's a levy that could be put on, if we could piggyback on with, say, some other entity, say the Veterans Council, which I understand returns money at the end of the year, or maybe somehow with a library or something. If there's a way that we could glean some of that money off, like you say, it doesn't take a whole lot to run these places, but if we could get some help that way, that would help not only our museum, but all of our friends. We have such a great museum complex here in this town that is going to bring people in. And you're right. I think Bryce Riggs is going to bring people in. We sat through a Sandusky County talk about their Visitors Bureau and how they emphasize history. And they talked about having a person jump on bus to give tours and bringing bus loads in where we have one or two, they have like 90. You want to talk about marketing and bringing in money and help. Those kind of things we were excited to be looking forward to getting involved in. So just different ideas, different avenues that maybe we can think about. But again, it's not just one, it's all of our great museums, the Dow Museum, those things are all very, very important as community and are a great draw. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I think with some new hotel development and all the good things that are happening downtown, that tying that all together in one marketing package is going to be important. We all take day trips, and that, we certainly have stuff to offer. So I concur. All right, anyone else?
Yeah.
ahead.
This is Jim Stoltz, member of the Historical Society. And I guess I just wanted to say a big thank you to Tanya, to Mark, and all the other volunteers. And I hope that we can continue to support them and what they do at the museum. Thanks.
Thank you.
Just a reminder that if you've called in on the phone, you can hit *6 to unmute.
All right, last call.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, 2 quick points. One is thanks for holding this past hour. It's nice to get more information on this issue. It's been a little frustrating to get information on this whole thing. Since we don't really have a real newspaper anymore, it's hard to get information on what's going on. Specifically, apart from operational differences and behind the scenes differences, what this change would mean 5, 10, 20 years out. I know, Mark's mentioned some projects they would like to work on, and that's great to hear. But I'm not sure for the average person what the differences would be if this change would be made. Also, can you clarify again the whole inventory issue, because I'm not sure how that factors into everything, and I don't have information about. I don't have any knowledge about how the inventory is handled currently, but I know with museum inventory that can be a daunting task. That can take a long time, and so is that something that it needs to happen before anything else can happen? Thanks.
Yeah. That's a really good question. And, we've tried to put as much information out as we can. Obviously, we're in the information gathering stage. But to answer the question on the inventory, if someone donates something to the museum, it should be accompanied by, a donation sheet, the one that says, this item was received on this date from this family, estimated value, that kind of thing. Those records to a great degree exist. What hasn't happened is there hasn't been a complete physical inventory where all the items have been entered into a database. And the foundation has graciously provided us with the software. And again, I'm a banker by trade, not a museum director, but the software is used in the industry to catalog, what's in the collection, where it's at, who donated it, when it was donated, estimated value, and some kind of description, a photo, and whatnot. So the process has been to go room by room, pull everything off from the vase to the chase, so and photograph it, document, pull in all the documentation that we have, enter it in a database. And I think that's the prudent thing to do. And it's been something I've been very passionate about, is completing that so that we are, as county officials, being the best stewards possible of those items that have been entrusted to us. We want to know where they are at every moment. Now, the fact is that we have a lot of stuff and not all of it can be displayed. So creating that collection in a way that tells a story is very important. And if you're putting together a display, it would be very handy to be able to go into a database and search 1890 furniture, or and know exactly where those pieces are, and create your exhibit. We don't have that ability now, but I'm sure we'll get there. One of my primary concerns of turning the operation over is we don't know what all we have. We have a good sense. We rely on a lot of institutional knowledge, which is we put that in the basement on the third shelf, behind the Halloween decorations or whatever. It's we're not to the point where we have an inventory that we're completely proud of, but that takes time, and we're getting there. And my goal has been to use this time when the museum is closed to normal operations to complete that task. That gives us a lot of flexibility in the future, and I think it's the most prudent and fiscally responsible thing to do.
On behalf of that, Shane, I personally done inventory there. I spent 6-7 hours behind that computer entering and photographing. It is no fun task. You're right. There's a lot of stuff in that house that still needs to be inventoried. And so if you were to have another entity come over and take in and go in, they wouldn't know where to start. They can look through the binders and all our paperwork, but they have no idea what they're going to face. And that's why I think the county should continue on what they're doing, take care of the museum, get Tanya back, get the volunteers back. Even though we're in a COVID-19 pandemic, Tanya can go back there a few hours a week, and work on some of the inventory. And just sitting idle for since March, we lost almost 6 months of inventory time here. So I think the county should put Tanya back on the payroll, even part-time, and let her work there and work on the inventory and work on stuff in not major stuff, but like I said, the inventory. That's the most important thing we were told that you guys would have done, was the inventory. But now, since we've been shut down for 6 months, we got 6 months lagged. Now once we reopen the museum with the county funds and the county operation, we got to catch up. I have a full-time job, and I will go there. I always work there on every other Saturdays. So my time is not really good, but at least get Tanya back on the payroll, let her go in the museum and work on that inventory. And I think that would be the best suggestion. I don't think giving the operation to the foundation is going to help, because they're going to walk in and what you said, they're going to walk into a big house. They have no knowledge what was inventory. That is all.
Thank you. Thank you for volunteering. Other thoughts? We're at the hour mark. I think that's we could talk about the museum for days, I think, but I just want to make sure anyone else have something that they really wanted to share with us. Okay. Well, I appreciate everybody's attendance today. We will, if necessary, do this again. We will see where the other commissioners go in the next few weeks. And please stay tuned. And if you have any questions for us, I am always available. My personal phone number is 419-618-3806. Happy to talk about this at length with anyone who's interested. Again, thank you, and have a great and safe week.